Are we at the endgame already for Gozyuger? Is this the big finale? Are we in the final story arc? Because this episode sure felt like it with episode 15 of Gozyuger. So this episode was quite the interesting one. This is the big game changer episode of everything that went down in this week's episode. But the main thing to talk about is what happened in the later half of the episode. So this episode is the bad guys or the villain faction finally putting their big plan into motion to bring Tegajun to life by finding the appropriate pilot for her, as her main goal is to marry Tegasword, so that way the world can be not destroyed, but born anew in her image. And we kind of see the results of that at the end of this week's episode. But the first part of this episode is wacky silly hijinks where you have some of the generals trying to find these rare items. You have Fire Candle going through this haunted house, and I got a kick out of that because you got a lot of Japanese horror references like Ju-on and Ringu and stuff like that. And that was a lot of fun with how that was filmed in the atmosphere of that place. And then you had a moment where Shining Knife and Sweet Cake went to the Tegasword village, the little cafe that they own, and they get into a small scuffle with them. But that's played out more for comedic effects of how they try to win over the good guys. And then you have this scene with Bouquet and Byakuya where she's worried about his safety because, you know, the world is about to be renewed and she's got a super big crush on the dude. Now, one of the things we do learn about Tegajun in this episode is that she's an artificial intelligence created by humans trying to mimic Tegasword. And with that, she's also been given the power of AI creation, where all those monsters we've been fighting ever since the show began, they've been her creations created by AI, is what I gathered from reading from the subs. So Tegajun is quite the interesting one because I want to learn more about her creation, because if she was created by humans trying to mimic like Tegasword and stuff like that, there's got to be more to that backstory, like the humans who created her and stuff like that, because if humans were trying to create their own Tegasword, then who are the humans behind this in No One World or No One Land who created Tegajun to begin with? Like, I'm sure we have to learn about their backstory with the ones who actually created Tegajun to begin with. But yeah, Tegajun's whole gimmick is that she wants to recreate the world in her image. She's going to, like I said, quote unquote, destroy the world, but it's going to be reborn into her image. So our heroes have to stop it. And like I said at the start of the review as a joke, the whole like stakes of this episode, it felt like Endgame stakes with a Sentai season with the world being at stake with everything going on. And especially with how this episode ends, it definitely comes off with an Endgame finale story arc with everything going on. So once again, the writers for this show are definitely cooking up something special, you could say that. And when we finally see Tegajun, it is a CGI robo, which CGI robos, you can either take it or leave it, but I think they had time crunched with this episode, so that's why they had to make it a CGI robo. But with what they do with the CGI robo, we do get some pretty decent fight scenes with it. I mean, there is this one scene where Tegajun and Tegasword are dancing in this chapel, and they're sort of getting spun around and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. Not only that, you see them sort of transforming into their sword and gun form, and they're chasing each other around. That was really crazy as well. That was freaking weird and crazy as well. But it was a decent fight scene, I will say that. So, in the end, the episode has the good guys are losing in the end, and you have Tegasword getting the ring put on him by Tegajun, and then he's pulled towards her and they kiss. And when the kiss happens, they start the marriage and the rebirth of the world begins to happen. And it's pretty freaking crazy where the sky goes black, you see thunderstorms, massive windstorms with everything picking up and just debris and stuff like that flying into buildings to show like the destruction of the world happening right now with it being reborn and recreated. But one of the things that happens as soon as they consummate the marriage is that they give birth to the spoilers if you haven't been keeping up with the leaks, but basically the mech for the Sixth Ranger, which is Goodburn, which recently with scans and stuff that came out with the Sixth Ranger and their mech, is that their mech is the son of the Tegasword and Tegajun, which is called the Prince of Destruction. So I do wonder if the Sixth Ranger is going to be created from this marriage, or is it just the mech? Because we'll be seeing our Sixth Ranger in next week's episode from the previews, which is something I'm really excited to see. Not only that, it looks like they've changed all the promotion stuff with Gozyuger Round 2, as instead of having Horu on the front cover, it's the brand new Sixth Ranger, which we know who the actor is going to be for that, which I'll probably get into next week's review, that is for sure. But I am definitely curious to see where this show is going to go moving forward, because it looks like the status quo is definitely going to be changing with the world being reborn and stuff like that. The team's going to have to come together. We're going to meet our Sixth Ranger and stuff like that. No idea what happened to Horu. We do see him in next week's episode preview, but it looks like all the other Rangers are back to leading their normal lives. I mean, we saw the Green Ranger. He looked like he was going to be an old man in the preview and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens with that. But this was a really great episode, and although like the pacing felt like really calm before the start of the episode, like all fun and games and then getting a bit of war drops in them, it's definitely the last half of the episode is where it really picks up, and that's when we get to the big climactic battle in the end. But overall, this was a really great, fantastic episode of Gozyuger, and I can't wait to see where the show is going to go next, because again, this show always continues to amaze me when I watch it week to week, and with this week's episode of how it ended, it looks like the status quo has definitely shifted with this season, and we'll see where it's going to go next week, that is for sure. Because it looks like we're in round 2 already, but judging from all the promotional material and stuff like that, round 2 has only just begun, as our Sixth Ranger will make their debut in next week's episode. But with that said, I will catch you guys later in the next Gozyuger related video, or the next Power Rangers related video. I honestly have no idea, but I will catch you guys later. Peace out, take care, and bye.